We're live, guys. All right. So the title for today is it reasonable to believe God exists? So this is an argument against atheism and an argument for theism. In this video, we're not going to argue for the Bible, for the God of the Bible. We're not going to argue for the God of the Bible. We're just going to use arguments whether it's reasonable that God exists or not. The reason I use the word reasonable is that when you get into philosophy and stuff like that and questions, which I'm not a philosopher, but as I'm studying the Bible, I do dabble into philosophy and debating and logic and stuff like that. I'm slowly learning. So what I'm saying is that, like, I could say, like, prove to me that we don't live on a turtle. Prove to me that we don't live on a giant flying turtle through space. Like, I think some cultures, Native Americans said that we live on a big floating turtle, let's say. Can I 100% prove that that is a statement that is true or false? No, really, you can't. You can't really prove everything without, 100%. What we can do is to decide whether certain beliefs or statements are reasonable or not. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this looking into these kind of topics, this is what I've heard during debates, and to me it makes pretty much a lot of sense. Prove to me that we live in the Matrix. Prove to me 100% without a doubt that we don't. We can't do this 100%, proving one thing, or 100% proving that something is not, and stuff like that. So we're going to go through pretty much three basic arguments that that I think are quite valid, that like I said, that can give somebody the first step in looking to see if it is logical or reasonable to assume that there is a God. We could call God at the moment, since we're not sticking with the biblical God, we could call God could stand for a guiding, operating, designing force or entity and stuff like that. I wouldn't even, I think it's a fallacy to even say that it's a force, because things like, for example, let's say gravity and stuff like that. Gravity is a force, but it has no mind. It has no creative capabilities. So I just want to say hi to Dalai Lama, say hi to Darth, hello to Yan, and hello to Bruce Seasall. I believe that Bruce will be doing a stream later on this evening, probably around 8 o'clock. So make sure to tune in to his second live stream. He had one also today, so you can go check that out. So let's just jump into the PowerPoint presentation that I made. Right, let's do the share screen. Hey, the real Wayno is also here today. Thanks, guys, for showing up. We have 6 people. Yesterday, we seem to be averaging about 8 people that stay till the end of the live stream. I'd like to make this about 1 hour tops. Yesterday was a fun live stream. I had plenty of time to go over a lot of stuff. I was alone at home, so I just stretched it to 3 hours. Then my wife arrived, so I stopped it there. So that was a really long stream. The long streams don't get that many views, unfortunately, understandably, especially if you're like me and you're way too lazy to put timestamps. But it is what it is. All right, so proof God exists, or as the title says, is it reasonable to believe in theism? And is it reasonable to believe in atheism? because atheism is not the statement that we don't know if there's a God or not. Atheism is a blatant statement that God definitely does not exist. And I think that's a lot more unreasonable. And these are the three major arguments why I think that statement is unreasonable. So the three basic questions: is there an intellectual basis for believing in God? Or is being religious just a matter of blind faith? You know, as the critics say, fairy tales for adults. Faith, again, people automatically, when they hear the word faith, they assume blind faith, believing something without any evidence. And that is not true. We're not going to get into the evidence for the Bible or for Christianity, because we're going to just stick to the philosophical question of is theism reasonable? But faith is just another word, a synonym for confidence and trust. We all have faith in something. We live in a materialistic, secular society, and a lot of people who have left religion have adopted science as their trust, science as a faith, which can end up, being scientism. Just like they'll criticize the religious person that goes, Sunday and listens to their pastor, and they just believe whatever the pastor says. Many of us who do not work in science really don't know the scientists making the claim, have not really gone deeply through the methods of how they have come to their conclusions. The idea that there is no bias within the scientific community is ridiculous, guys. As we know, my eyes were opened when I started the ketogenic diet and went to the nutritional science and saw the bias there, saw the studies that were backing up that way of eating, yet mainstream policies and society themselves had not adopted. Basically, there's an agenda when it comes to nutritional science to push a worldview and to shadow ban, to hide and not acknowledge things that don't reinforce their worldview. And we can see that, of course, in academia, in all the areas of science have this potential. So some people, so basically, guys, we all put our faith in something, if at the very least, faith in ourselves. So the third question: are there reasonable proofs for God? Backing up and looking at a very prominent atheist in Anthony Flew. I just want to play my phone just to make sure that I'm screening things appropriately. All right, just want to make sure the voice is okay here. All right, yep, just want to make sure the voice is okay here. Perfecto mundo. Hey, Anne, thanks for showing up. Anybody else? So we'll go through the initial argument, and then I'll go back and check out some of the comments. So yeah, we have a British professor and philosopher, Anthony Flew. He was a very prominent, outspoken atheist, and in 2004, he renounced atheism in favor of theism. One of the reasons that was cited by Professor Flew was what he called the evidence. He admitted that for a long time, the growing problem of evolution's inability to explain how life began, or for that matter, how anything began, led him to the inevitable conclusion that it was an inadequate answer in the face of evidence. So don't forget, even if you're a proponent for Darwin's theory of evolution, it still does not explain the miracle required for abiogenesis. Biology and genesis, right? The start, the birth. So it doesn't have a model to explain how life came from non-life. Again, if we're going to use the scientific method, what we have to do is observe and measure things. So it's quite unscientific when everything else in the world shows that life comes from non-life, to again say that it's scientific to make a claim that nothing created everything. And this, unfortunately, is the other conclusion that you have to draw. Either something or someone created everything, or nothing created everything. And science, because it does not want to give any validity to intelligent design and a creator, in which if there is an intelligent designer and creator, therefore possibly there are rules, there are laws to follow. We'll get into, which is my third argument, the question of morality that is written on all of our hearts. Where does that come from? We'll get into that soon. So we see that with evolution, we have a blind, unguided, what they call natural processes of mutations that become beneficial, and those beneficial mutations give us a superior advantage, and they outlive the other previous model, and off we go. The whole point is that it's a blind and unguided process. When we dig deep into, and as science is able to peer deeper and deeper into the cellular realm, as well as the realm of atoms and electrons and the quantum environment, what they see is an insane level of complexity. At the time of Darwinism, he saw a cell as a blob, maybe with a denser center where the nucleus is. Now we know that the simplest cell is literally a city, a complex city with power stations, with transport stations, with recycling centers. So for Anthony Flew, it's when the DNA genome code was unraveled, and the evidence for a design for him became undeniable. One, he claimed that the existence of life demanding a life source. Again, Darwinism, believe it or not, does not answer abiogenesis, where did life itself come from, when we see as observers using what we can measure and quantify and observe, that we only see life coming from life. People used to think that there was, spontaneous life could be created. They would see flesh all of a sudden producing maggots and stuff like that. They didn't realize, let's say at the time, that maggots are the larvae of flies. The maggots didn't spontaneously generate from the rotting flesh. Indeed, life comes from life. So the scientific evidence of an extremely complex code in the makeup of life, which we're talking about, is DNA. So DNA is not a bunch of nucleotides that have assembled just by pure chance and luck to create a wide variety of functioning body systems, from vegetation to aquatic life to microorganisms to animals to birds to humans. It seems like there is a common language, a common coding that is used, and this implies that there should be a coder. DNA is an instruction manual. It is an instruction manual to build these body systems, and an instruction manual always comes from an instructor, somebody who has created a device and then given the blueprints to create that device and to recreate the device and to replicate that device as well. And for Anthony Flew, this was enough for him to renounce atheism. So can we prove God? So again, I don't think we can in our state on earth during our lifetime, can we prove 100% without a doubt? Probably not. But can we have great faith, confidence, and trust? And is it reasonable to believe that there is a God, a guiding, operating designer? Truth is only truth if it's objective truth. That is, it is true for everyone, regardless of time or circumstances. Our current society rejects objective truth. Everything is relative, they say. And as we can see in society, this is literally redefining words. Everything is now on a spectrum. You have your truth, I have my truth, that person has their truth. And if we have 8 billion people, then we have 8 billion truths. Therefore, we see that we're losing the ability even to describe things that initially we all agreed were reality. This is because we have left objective truth. And this is also, I think, a symptom of having left God as a worldview. It's okay within a society if a certain percentage of the population don't believe it. However, when a critical mass is reached where everyone has rejected, there's a critical mass that's achieved, then we're going to see profound changes in the individual and in society. And when this has occurred, it has usually led to enslavement of humanity and the killing off of large portions of humanity. Thus, God is either true and there can be objective proofs to support this, or he is not true and only subjective truths can be offered for proof. I'm just going to go over here, say hello to anybody else who's shown up. What is going on here in this barbecue chicken summer heat? Jason, if you finish early or after your stream, I'm streaming at 8 to 10. I'll think about it. I'm always super stoked to go on your channel, but it'll take away from the time I have to spend with Michelle too. So if I'm taking way too much time for this presentation, I might not be able to show up, but maybe if I don't go overboard with this stream, I can show up maybe for like half an hour or so. Thank you for the invite. I will try and be there. Thanks to Bruce for sharing this stream out. And we have a very reasonable, great question. Just so many liars, hard to know where to go at this point. It's very, very true. All right, looks like I've acknowledged everybody. Perfecto. So there's different claims require different proofs. All right, and this is the problem where when we're talking about God, and then go one step further, which we're not talking about today, the biblical God and stuff like that, they will ask for certain types of truths that it's impossible to use those methods to prove the statement true or false. Because, and let me put it this way. Just give me 1 second. One moment, guys. All right. Make sure I'm sharing again. Sorry. All right. So this is why I wrote it down, because I did not, that last phrase was very confusing the way I worded it. So that's why I'm using a PowerPoint. Different claims require different proofs. So proof, though, is measured, evaluated, and determined according to the type of claim. The type of proof needed to substantiate a claim involving, let's say, chemistry is different to the type of proof needed to substantiate a claim made about history, right? So, for example, when we would get into the not proving just only theism, that let's say proving the Old Testament is historically accurate, proving that Jesus and the Gospels are accurate. You're not going to use the same scientific method that you would use to learn about chemistry, biochemistry, about elements, about electron. You wouldn't use these kind of methods to prove claims and truths that you're trying to learn about in chemistry. You can't use that in history. Therefore, chemistry is different to the type of proof needed to substantiate a claim made about history. Now, if you go and you learn historicity, or how historians function in academia, then that's the kind of proof, that's the kind of methods, and these are the claims that can be made using those very specific kind of methods. Proof in, let's say, physiology, the physiology of our body is different to the type of proof needed for psychology, right? Proof required for biology is different to the type of proof required for theology. And this is what happens when you're trying to talk about theism or the New Testament or the Bible, and proving the reliability, the accuracy. These are words that we should use as Christians. Is the Bible reliable? Is it accurate? These kind of things are reasonable statements to try and defend. Is it true? Well, is it 100% true? Like, you can't even test that on yourself as a Christian because you were not there. But yet history is still considered a valid way of acquiring truth. But it's nowhere near the same method as the hard sciences. So to demand that hard science, the physics, biology, chemistry, astronomy, proof tests be the only acceptable means for testing the soft sciences, psychology, history, philosophy, literature, theology, things like that, this claim is unreasonable. Thus, imposing natural proof tests on supernatural claims is, in my opinion, an unreasonable measure, and it's totally inaccurate. But where supernatural claims are made, which have natural implications, such as an invisible God created all that we see, as Romans 1:20 says, proof takes on the garb of supporting or cumulative evidence. And I would say that I have become a Christian and a believer in Jesus in the New and Old Testament, not because of just one thing or even 5 things or even 20 things. It took me to have an accumulation of reasonable evidences that support the claim, yet I still am unable to prove 100%. But that goes for everybody about everything else. So we often see that the claims, the standards set on proving whether God exists or not, Bible, New Testament, things like this, they set unreasonable standards that actually no other historical document has to come to that level. I do understand, because there are bold claims they're being made. When it comes to proof for God, the evidence is cumulative and therefore acceptable proof. This is just a quote. It says, "It is then true that everything teaches man, it is then true that everything teaches man his condition, but he must understand this well, for it is not true that all reveals God, and it's not true that all conceals God, but it is the same time true that he hides himself from those who tempt him, and that he reveals himself to those who seek him. Because men are both unworthy because of our fallen nature, right? And capable of God, unworthy because of our corruption, and capable because of our original nature, which is being made in the image of God. So just like you could grab something and imprint it in the sand, we could say that I grabbed this metal thing, I pushed it into the sand, and it is made in the image of this heavy device this heavy metallic sculpture. So I push it in, and then after this, the sand is made in the likeness of, but it's actually opposite. So the power of God, it is the imprinting force, and we are the vessel made perfectly in that in that image. Meaning, the questions that we ask about God, okay, is actually proof. The fact that we contemplate eternity, the fact that we have a moral compass, the fact that we are appalled by injustices, show that we have the very qualities that are innately in the Creator. So to a certain extent, we can know the Creator even without the Bible. Man has contemplated that there is a higher divine being. I believe, and this is not part of this discussion, that not all faiths, not all spiritual ideas can be right. And I believe I've come because of the cumulative evidence, because I always believed in the arguments for theism, but I doubted Christianity. But again, that's for another topic. But if you dig into the Bible, then the Bible will reveal itself. And what is revealed in the Bible is the true God and his only begotten Son, which is the atoning sacrifice for our sins. And that's for another topic. Romans, again, just pointing out that, Paul understood this debate, understood this argument. He said, "For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his external power, and his divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse." Just want to make sure this is popping up. If we look at, for example, the bronchial tree over here, right? The bronchial tree. So I'm a respiratory therapist, and this has always, blown my mind. We call it a bronchial tree because it's an inverted tree. It has to do with cellular respiration. This is how our body uses oxygen and to drive the organism. So we have an inverted tree, and we require oxygen, and that oxygen binds to hemoglobin, which has an iron center in it, and that transports around like a bus the oxygen for the cells. Remember the Krebs cycle and stuff like that. But God has shown his invisible qualities, in my opinion, in this example, because I look and I see trees everywhere, and I see that these trees have a common designer. Okay, it's very hard to imagine an unguided blind process doing making another type of respiratory system that is opposite, but in a way almost the same. So we have this inverted tree. We use oxygen, we produce CO2. The plants, they do the opposite. They need the CO2 and they breathe out the oxygen. We have an iron center to the hemoglobin. And if you go and you dig into botany and plant physiology and stuff like that, you'll see that they have their form of hemoglobin in a way. They have a magnesium center. Now, the structure that transports the oxygen for us, the outer structure is exactly almost the same as the outer structure that the plant has, except ours is iron and the other one in the plants is magnesium. You know, photosynthesis is a little bit more complex. It requires light to produce energy, but I see that there is a design here, and the designer is quite, you know, obvious to me. Let's just go back here. I do want to draw attention to this one here. These are our vocal cords that open and close when we breathe to suck in the oxygen and to excrete the CO2. We're going to jump to a small video over here. And we're going to look at the stoma of a plant. And we're going to, with all honesty, say, is this a sign of a common designer here? Or is this a blind, unguided process by just fluke? What a chance that this happened. Check this out. All right. So a video of a tiny plant stoma opening and closing. So this is the plant breathing. I'm going to share the screen now. We're going to bring it back. So we see here the mouth. We could say the mouth or the mouths of the plant, the leaves. You can literally see that, you know, it almost looks like a pair of lips and stuff like that. But we definitely see that it's opening and closing. I find that it looks very much as like the vocal cords that we see over here, opening and closing. Common design, common designer, in my opinion. Now, can I prove it 100%? No, but I believe that it is quite reasonable as a observer to look at the design here, to look at the symbiotic and the interdependency of life forms that require the oxygen and the trees. To me, they had to arrive almost simultaneously. That we could not have had one without the other. Am I wrong? Maybe. This is just personal. But again, what I see is within the genome, within DNA, I see a complex language, a blueprint that is in everything, every body system that has that we see on Earth, from the tiniest micro amoebas and organisms to the largest animals to the whole gamut of vegetation, to the marine life, to the amphibians, to the mammals, to all of it. What I see is that yes, if you look at somebody who builds a wheelbarrow and then builds a bicycle and a lawnmower and a gas motorcycle and a gas car and then a Tesla, we could hypothesize and say that this is proof of evolution. So we would put the simplest and say, well, first the wheelbarrow happened, and we know that the lawnmower came from the wheelbarrow because they have wheels, and you could just you could line them up in complexity and make, but you could make that theory and that assumption, and it could be quite reasonable as well. But this is what I see. I see DNA is present in all body systems. It is a language, and the language is always communicated by a mind, by an intelligent being. And it's very easy to look at the iPhone and know that this doesn't spring out, in the rainforest naturally. The same thing, with this mouse, with this computer, with a book here. So we have, the complete guide to fasting. First of all, we have to explain how the actual material, the paper, came into being. Then we have to explain the colors. Then we have to explain the language, which isn't just a bunch of letters without meaning. They are a way of expressing thought, intention, and communicating ideas. We can see that it is numbered, that there are images and stuff like that. It's very easy for us to make a extremely reasonable statement that it is highly probable that somebody wrote that book. But this pales in its complexity when we look at the book of life written in us. The Bible's around, if I'm not mistaken, I remember it's like 6 million letters in the Bible. But our DNA is 6 billion nucleotide chains. So 6 billion letters, let's say. So, but the atheists and the people that reject the very idea that there could be a God have to reject the very reasonable assumption that basically they're going around saying, that, these things that are way, way less complex, of course, are created by something. But you know what? The things that are way more complex obviously are not designed. There's no real purpose, kind of thing. I think that is an unreasonable statement. And again, we're talking about are things, is it reasonable to believe that God exists? Let's go again to the presentation. There's 12 people. Please smash the like button, share in your communities on Facebook if possible. Obviously, subscribe as well if you're enjoying the content, guys. So let's go back to sharing the entire screen. So in my opinion, it takes more faith or confidence and trust to be an atheist. And what I mean by that, actually, no, that's not what I mean. Here I'm using the word faith as being believing in something without evidence. This is like, as I said, the typical usage when they talk about faith, that Christians have faith in the Bible, have faith in God, have faith, meaning they just believe without evidence, and that is not true. So I'm using here faith, even though I don't believe that faith should be viewed as believing without evidence. I think that there is faith above reason, meaning that there are evidences that you acquire that give you trust and confidence in the conclusion that you have come to. And yes, to a certain extent, there is the other usage of faith, which is blind faith. Okay. This existence or proofs for the existence of God invites those atheists to consider it, especially for those who claim that there is none. So at the very least, it should be reasonably concluded that atheism, the absolute claim that there is no God after considering all possible knowledge, in my opinion, is a highly irrational position. So it's important to not necessarily always get into the same conversation where you're the one that is defending your view. Another tactic is to allow the person challenging the atheist to allow them to speak about their worldview. You'll see that when you question their worldview, they have no foundation and it quickly crumbles. In fact, atheism is based way more on avoiding logical and reasonable conclusions. So yeah, that's a big purpose of the video is as a Christian, yes, be ready to have reasonable reasons to believe your faith. Give that evidence. That's part of apologetics. That's part of preaching the gospel. But they as well have to defend their worldview. And I'm telling you, we have a lot more reasons to believe our worldview than they have to believe that nothing created everything. So proof for the existence of God, again, proof for the existence. Is it reasonable to believe that God exists? I should relabel that. There is the argument of the first cause. So everything has a cause. We see this. Everything that occurs, we can see that it just doesn't happen without a cause. That, in this universe, when this force does this, this is what happens. So we see that there's causes for all sorts of stuff. So everything has a cause. It is illogical to suggest that something had no cause. This is where the theory of evolution becomes completely inadequate. It cannot explain how anything began, let alone life, abiogenesis, right? So the theist will make a reasonable, in my opinion, statement that at least something must have created everything, but that is too close to, theism. So the atheist will say, no, we rather make the claim that nothing created everything. This is literally when you start questioning their worldview is what basically their foundation is on. So when we consider the evidence that there are things which exist, it logically demands that either something or someone caused it. We can then rule out something as a solution, since we would be returning to the original problem. What made something? This just becomes a continual loop. Well, what created that? This. Then, well, what created that thing then? This is where multiverse, or the idea that maybe aliens that are further along in their evolution came and seeded us. Maybe, we come from monkeys because a higher life form came and did some genetic tampering and stuff like that. Okay, but those created beings, which maybe more evolved, further along, more intelligent, whatever, have better technology, they still reside within the known universe, and therefore they also had a cause in the beginning. So the next statement is, this demands that the first cause must be an uncreated first cause. That is, that the first cause has always existed, that it is eternal. Now, science at one point were hypothesizing that perhaps the universe itself is, and energy and stuff like that is eternal. Science, and I don't agree with all the science, but I'll use what their senses, their consensus, their conclusions currently are. They admit that now they don't think that the universe is eternal. They have the Big Bang Theory. So the late Professor Stephen Hawking advanced the idea that the cosmos could have sprung into existence from nothing without a cause. But this nothing, let's let's define what he thinks nothing is. He claimed that the pre-existent force of gravity could have supplied the energy and impetus to cause the Big Bang. This idea, of course, undermines the earlier seminal work of Professor Roger Penrose, where they demonstrated that the universe had a beginning and was not eternal. Hawking's later theories regarding cosmology, how the universe began, did not find wide acceptance among his peers and those who work in the field of cosmology, because it is generally acknowledged that Professor Hawking's committed two errors. Firstly, he presupposed the law has creative power. And secondly, for his theory to be established, he had to redefine nothing as having positive properties in which gravity could exist. So this nothing that he's claiming could have created everything is not really nothing at all. It's a something. Again, clearly his assumption about nothing begs the question because it fails to account for what caused these positive properties to exist without themselves being caused. And while we refer to observable, repeatable, testable, and universal physical interactions such as gravity as laws, this is a man-made designation, and the law itself possesses no mind, which is necessary and essential to be the first cause. There's the Kalam cosmological argument that I've heard about. Put simply, whatever begins to exist has a cause of its existence. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe had to have a cause for its existence. The implication of the Kalam cosmological argument is that the universe must have had a cause. It also stands that this cause was uncaused. Another way of putting this is if time, space, and matter came into existence at one point, then whatever that cause or source of the time, space, and matter has to be timeless, has to be non-spatial and non-material. Now, when we talk in these terms, we approach the definition of a theistic God that we actually even see in the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, time, God created the heavens, the spatial realm, and the earth, the material realm. So the Bible in literary, because again, the Bible does not have to be proven with scientific proofs. As literature, this is quite impressive that the first sentence of the Bible says, in the beginning, God created. In the beginning, time, right? So it is a beautiful literary way of writing a uncaused cause. Let me just go again to some of the comments on my phone here. Just saying hi to people. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree. So yeah, for sure. In science, they just, when they talk about everything's a theory, and that's fine. I'm okay with everything being a theory. It's just, they develop a model of reality, and then as they get more evidences, the cumulative evidences, sometimes that model will change. So for sure. J-Bon, J-Bon. I wanted to keep this to about an hour-ish and get through the whole thing. But yeah, if you're still there by the end, maybe we can do like a quick 15 minutes or so, and you can kind of like try and pick apart like some of the arguments and stuff like that. I'd be fine with that. Give me 1 second, guys. So looking back on this, there are only three alternatives to this conclusion. The universe, matter, time, space, we can even add energy, has always been. That is, it is eternal. There's also they talk a lot about the multiverse theory, but still, whether it's just one universe that happened in the Big Bang or to me, the multiverse is still even more. It's just an infinite regression. It's like, okay, well, what was the first cause of all of these bubble universes? So multiverse theory, or perhaps aliens from far away. Again, who created the aliens? The universe does not actually exist. We could say that. That is, this universe is an illusion. So let's look at some of the rebuttals for that. So the universe did have a demonstrable beginning, the Big Bang, where all matter, space, time, and energy began. It's now attested to by over 20 major research projects. There is no evidence for the universe being eternal. The multiverse theory does not resolve the issue of beginnings, abiogenesis for living organisms, or just how nothing can explode into something. In effect, it becomes a series of infinite regression. Same with the aliens. Also, the idea that nothing is real might sound feasible in philosophy, but our self-consciousness and the ability to interact with each other, people who are similarly self-conscious, immediately dismisses this fanciful theory. We can also look at the universe exhibits design. Now, look, guys, I'm not a biologist. I'm not a cosmologist. So the statements that I'm kind of presenting here are things that I've seen in debates with, academics and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm just presenting things that convinced me. With the limited amount of knowledge that I know. That's why I will go to, people who debate, let's say, mainstream science, and they are as well, they have a PhD. Like when you look at Stephen Meyer, when you look at James Tour, when you look at a lot of people with PhDs and stuff like that. So I'm an idiot. So I'm just sitting back and I'm looking at both of them bring their best arguments. If I was to debate, a college professor and stuff like that, I would not know if what a lot of the stuff he's saying is true, if it's founded or unfounded. So for somebody who's not doesn't have a degree in that, I find the debates between those people who have degrees that are on each side of the debate table very, very rewarding and very, very useful for me to come to conclusions about my faith, my belief. The universe exhibits design. What scientists discovered about the human genome code was an extremely sophisticated, like I just mentioned, won't go more and more into that, the genetic language necessary for even the simplest forms of life to exist. The universe displays an amazingly complex level of interdependency, which logically leads to the conclusion that it was designed that way. There's symbiotic relationships that need to almost, in my opinion, occur simultaneously, or else the whole system just doesn't work. Certain systems are dependent on other systems, and if they're not functioning at the same time, it's very hard to see how they could function at all, how they could evolve down the line. So there is a high level of amazingly complex interdependency. Symbiosis is required. So the universe displays this amazingly complex level of interdependency, which logically leads to the conclusion that it was designed that way, in my opinion. The Earth is just the right distance from the sun. It contains just the right mixture of chemicals and gases to sustain life. Humans have just the right ability to breathe these gases. The human body has just the right synergy of internal organs in order to function, and so on and so on and so on. Anthony Flew artfully describes the design of the universe, and in particular, its obvious design for humans, by asking his readers to imagine arriving at a motel room without a booking. So he makes this analogy. I didn't mark it all. I can just quickly say it. He goes, imagine if you arrive at a hotel room, you go into the hotel room, your favorite song is playing on the radio. You open up the mini bar. It has your favorite drinks and favorite chocolate bars and food are there. Everything that that you enjoy and stuff like that are there, right? Your favorite whatevers. And what he says is you would kind of stand back and sit and go, hey, like, did somebody know I was coming? Because it seems that this motel room has been set up perfectly for just me. And Anthony Flew kind of uses this analogy that the design of the universe seems to as well revolve not only around the ability of humans to function in this universe, but that to make it even very, very pleasurable as well. So according to Dr. Hugh Ross, he is, I believe, I know he's big into cosmology and stuff like that. I think he at least has the credentials and stuff like that. So there's about 400 parameters that are simultaneously needed in order for human life to be possible on Earth. If we add Flew's analogy about entering a motel room with all your favorite stuff being there, making you start to reasonably conclude that it seems like somebody expected you, and somebody also not only expected you to come, but actually knows you very well. Also, the person seems to know a lot of stuff about you. Well, when we look at our life and our human experience here on Earth, we can see that there are not only things that allow it possible for us to function, but as well to thrive and to have pleasure in this world. If one takes Flew's analogy and considers not just the parameters which make life enjoyable and give pleasure to life, we soon discover that this list of design parameters climb to over 600. There's the cosmic connection. This is stated, now that the limits and parameters of the universe can be calculated and some even directly measured, astronomers, physicists have begun to recognize a connection between these limits and parameters and the existence of life. It is impossible to imagine a universe containing life in which any one of these fundamental constants of physics or one of the fundamental parameters of the universe is different, even slightly so, in one way or another. Now, again, am I able to write a thesis on the fine-tuning of the universe? No, that's where dummy me relies on looking at debates between smarter people than me to come to conclusions using my own intellect and limited logic and discernment to listen to the debate and go, wow. When I started doing this, I was surprised because very often it's a Christian on the other end debating with a PhD as well. And I was always shocked prior to being a Christian because I did believe in theism. I was surprised that it always seemed like the theist was the one that was coming with some very solid arguments. And unfortunately, the atheist or the person defending the current secular materialistic worldview didn't have much evidence and often would just in debates just ridicule the other component. I felt like they weren't actually bringing much to the table except for insults and stuff like that. So, if there are some really, really good debates, look, when you go to sports, you don't hope that, you want to see the two best teams, go at it. You don't want to see your favorite team go up against, a really weak team and say, yay, they're going to win. It's like, great. Yeah. Okay. It's my team. They're going against a weak team. And of course we're winning. I'm happy my team won. No, I'd like to see an amazing battle where both teams bring their best. And I'm still waiting for the atheist, or the ones that say nothing created everything, Darwinism stuff, to bring their best. From this, see, the issue is that I'm not denying, and all theists, when they enter the debate realm, from what I see, they acknowledge that they are making some assumptions, that they're starting with some presuppositions. Unfortunately, I find that the other side of the debate, the secular materialists, are unwilling or blind to acknowledge that they also have started with some assumptions and presuppositions. Because obviously, science, when it is the material science, when it is physical science, when it is looking at the current state, and it's examining the world in real time, measurable things like that, science is awesome and amazing. When science tries to go way, way into the past to make claims, I find that there are some assumptions and presuppositions, perhaps, that are wrong. And I think that they just refuse to acknowledge those presuppositions. That's what I've seen. I might be wrong. From this recognition arises the anthropic principle. Everything about the universe tends towards man, towards making life possible and sustaining it. There's also what I've heard, the insufficient universe. Now, this is where I say, is it reasonable? I've learned these things. Maybe this is wrong. I don't know. We all have a limited amount of time in our day. We're adults. I have to decide what to put my attention on. I can't be a PhD in everything. When I go to the hospital, when I do mechanical ventilation, when I'm using electrical impedance tomography to map the distribution of ventilation in the lung, I'm using physics, I'm using laws, gas laws, I'm using, Boyle's law, Gay-Lussiac's law, I'm using physics, I'm using biology, I'm using chemistry and stuff like that. Even while I'm a silly Christian that believes in a sky daddy, that has nothing to do with my ability to use the hard science in my professional life. This goes back to the start of my talk, where chemistry has certain claims and methods to prove, and psychology has certain claims and methods to prove that, and that using methods used in chemistry to prove psychological truths or theological truths or philosophical truths, they do not apply. It is clear that man is too limited. These are the claims in the theory for an insufficient universe. It is clear that man is too limited to have created the universe, but it is also evident that the universe is too limited to have created man. And this is even if you are taking the presupposition or the assumption that the Earth is 15 billion years old. The bottom line is that the universe is at least 10 billion orders of magnitude, a factor of that many times, too small and too young. And too young is if you take the 15 billion, for life to have assembled itself by natural processes. The evidence for the universe being designed is overwhelming. This observation is not original. It was stated much earlier by one of the world's leading cosmologists and physicists, Paul Davies. Professor Anthony Flew marvels at the complexity of life's design as he writes, "There is a rich narrative drama surrounding our current understanding of the cell. The genetic message in DNA is duplicated in replication and then copied from DNA to RNA in transcription. Following, there is translation whereby the message from RNA is conveyed to amino acids, and finally the amino acids are assembled into proteins. The cell's two fundamentally different structures of information management and chemical activity are coordinated by the universal genetic code. The probability calculation that a specific ribosome might assemble by chance assumed that the ribosome is 300 nucleotides long and that at each position there could be any of 4 nucleotides present. The chances of that ribosome assembling are then 4 to the 300th power, a number so large that it could not possibly happen by chance, even in 13 billion years, the age of the universe. When we look at the amount of atoms, we're looking at 10 to the 78th or 10 to the 82nd. The chance of this ribosome assembly is 4 to the 300. And now we're looking at the vast amount of atoms in the universe, and the number's even smaller than those odds. And then finally, the third argument that I think leads to that it is very reasonable that God exists is there is an intrinsic morality which needs a point of reference. How do we know what is evil, and how do we know what is good? Now, looking an atheist, somebody who doesn't believe in God, can be a very moral person, okay? But when they have to explain what morality is, they're actually unable to say that it is objectively real. It all becomes preference and opinion and things like that. So when you're being criticized because you believe in God, you can again go to the universal moral law that is written on everyone's heart, our conscience, and explain that why would killing an innocent infant be morally right or wrong if nothing created everything in the Big Bang, right? And then for billions and billions of years, it pretty much just remained like this. Finally, the elements and the inorganic, matter developed a mind and consciousness, and abiogenesis just popped in from dead rocks and helium and all these gases and all these elements and this vast amount of space. And all of a sudden, in this somewhat early primordial soup of molecules, maybe lightning, they say, possibly could have hit it. And then this miracle occurred, and it is a miracle, even with this storyline. We whether you're a theist or an atheist, there is a miracle that has to happen. Non-life created life, right? Now, if we are just part of Darwin's evolution, a unguided natural process of random mutations, then when does the right and wrong, the good and evil part come into the storyline here for human existence? Because are these was this complex soup when it, let's say one cell engulfed another cell and ate it? Was that morally wrong, or right, good or evil? I don't think so. I said this in my previous videos, and usually when I talk on this subjects, I usually make the analogy. I work in the hospital. I am not thinking that this bacteria is evil. that's invading the lung and causing a pneumonia. It's just the bacteria is doing what it's doing. Life tends to want to, assimilate, replicate, and pass on, its genes and to multiply. So bacterias just do what bacterias do, and they're not right, they're not wrong in what they're doing. It's not good, it's not evil. And when you look at the animal kingdom, when you look at a shark that chomps on a surfer's leg, and the surfer dies or something, was that shark good or evil? I don't think so. My conclusion is that if there's no moral agency, if nothing created everything, and we're just further along the Darwin's evolution of this molecular soup. So our origin, our parent is these amoebas, this complex molecular soup that has no moral agency. The animals don't have moral agency either. But then after they want to say that man is no different than animal, I understand that our body system, the vehicle that we're using is a mammalian, that we have an animal body, but I can go that far and agree. But if I'm taking the atheist, secular, materialistic, nothing created everything, then why is mankind subjected to moral standards such as good and evil? Because I know that there is a universal moral law, and I believe that it's objectively true. And I believe that this moral law comes from a moral law giver, basically the guiding, operating, designing being, God, okay, God, that created this. We see this moral law explained in the Bible. We're not going to get into the Bible, but what I'm saying is it's unreasonable to start with nothing created everything, and then at one point good and evil exists. Really, it's just a matter of opinion. There's nobody's right, nobody's wrong, and this is what we see in today's society, that everything's relative. Because we've walked away from the moral lawgiver, and now morality has become relative. It's about what society decides, and I think that we're coming because of this. We're coming up with a lot of dangerous ideologies, because if you remove the divinity, if you remove the divine creator, then after, humans are not special, humans are not made in the image of God, and therefore it all becomes basically the greater good. So whatever is the greater good, okay, that's the path that they will take once they leave God. Now, that means that the individual or large groups of individuals can be dispensed with if they say that doing this evil act here on individuals produces a net positive good for the majority. Then why wouldn't we do that? Now, when we have God as a moral lawgiver, we are not allowed to do that. It says, do not murder, right? But if this just becomes, do not murder becomes just an opinion, and there's no moral lawgiver, then we have no foundation for morality. But I know that we all have morality written on our heart. So again, it's more reasonable to believe, because of the universal moral law, that there is a lawgiver, than saying, I don't know why all humans tend to have this conscience, and we know the difference between right and wrong. We have, a conscience, but you know what? Nothing created everything. We're just a bunch of animals. It's like, okay, well, why can't we do what the animal kingdom does? The animal kingdom is a lot of killing, and a lot of killing your own offspring, you know, RAPing, forcing, you know, an animal in the wild will force itself onto a female. It's like, and the problem is with atheism, you're, you know, it's wrong. You know, humans shouldn't do that, but because you've left the moral lawgiver in a debate, you are acting illogically. You don't have a good reason to support morality, and the theist does. So these concepts demand either the existence of a standard to make such evaluations or an understanding what these concepts mean. Each of us are born with an innate sense of morality. We each instinctively know what is right and wrong. And it is incredible to consider that no matter time, culture, geographic location, or people, the moral law has been universally acknowledged. William Lane Craig says it this way: if God does not exist, objective moral values do not exist. Objective moral values do exist, therefore God exists. Pretty simple, but you know, it's a very reasonable statement. Um, the atheist will say that, well, society decides what's good and evil. So often you'll see in the debates, they'll bring up Germany, Nazi Germany, and what happened there. The soldiers in Germany were just following the law of that country. And that's the argument they were trying to say. You can't condemn us for having followed the laws of Germany at that time. And this is basically where crimes against humanity, in a way, that term occurred, and it was accepted in court. After World War II, Nazi war criminals were judged at Nuremberg. The prosecutors had a major problem, though. The defendants had not broken any laws, even though they were responsible for the mass murder of millions of people, including Jews, Gypsies, and Christians, since they were merely carrying out policies of the lawful official German government. The prosecutors were initially at a loss about how on earth they could charge them with any crimes. In a moment of inspired genius, one of the prosecutors said they could legitimately charge the SS officers with crimes against the law common to all of humanity, the natural law, our conscience written on our heart. Thus, the charge of crimes against humanity has introduced and universally, thus the charge of crimes against humanity was introduced and universally accepted. It was upon the basis of the court accepting that there was indeed a set of objective moral laws that universally defined right from wrong, that they were able to proceed in the prosecution of Nazi war criminals. So this tends to confirm that all of creation bears the fingerprint of a creator who is fundamentally good and right. That is, we each share a knowledge of what is right and wrong, not just because we are taught or conditioned to accept these values, but because we are born with them. Again, I've been in one-on-one conversations with people that have very high criticisms against Christianity, against the Bible. The New Testament, very easy to defend morally. The Old Testament, a little bit harder. And most of the time, when they use the Old Testament to try and make the God of the Old Testament, which is the God of the New Testament, there's no difference, into a monster, is because they are taking things out of context. I'm not going to get into how wacky world history can be. In Genesis 6, we're talking about fallen angels descending and mating with the daughters of man, creating angel-human hybrids that then required that were basically tampering with the DNA, the genome, requiring God to basically do chemotherapy on the world and eradicate the corruption in the genetic pool of humanity. We see also criticism of the Old Testament because of the conquests in the land of Canaan, the sometimes brutal commands of God to conquer different tribes. Again, a superficial reading of it does appear that God looks quite morally culpable in a lot of times. Then when we realize that, well, if these are genetic abominations and these are descendants of the Nephilim, again, a tainting of the gene pool for humanity, we start to understand that God had to do difficult things, but we read it as, oh, these are human clans fighting human clans, and it wasn't. And we go in deeper and deeper and deeper. The Old Testament, when read superficially, also we're talking about thousands of years. We have difficulty understanding the cultural context of the time and stuff like that. Anyways, we're not going to get into defending the Bible, but just as a side note, this tends to confirm that all of creation bears the fingerprints of a creator who is fundamentally good and right. That is, we each share a knowledge of what is right and what is wrong, not just because we are taught or conditioned to accept these values, but because we are born with them. Romans 2:12-16. I'm putting this in the talk just because I wanted to point out that Paul realized that as well, and this is what he's trying to talk in the book of Romans to the Greeks and stuff like that in the Romans. He's discussing the Gentiles and stuff like that with their pantheon of gods and stuff like that. And he's speaking to them, and he goes, all who sin apart from the law will also perish apart from the law, and all who sin under the law will be judged by the law. For it is not those who hear the law who are righteous in God's sight, but it is those who obey the law who will be declared righteous. Indeed, when Gentiles, or the nations, who do not have the law, do by nature things required by the law, they are a law for themselves, even though they do not have the law. They show that the requirements of the law are written on their hearts, their consciences also bearing witness, and their thoughts sometimes accusing them, and other times even defending them. This will take place on the day when God judges people's secrets through Jesus Christ, as the gospel declares. Dinesh D'Souza, you can see a lot of his debates, very good on YouTube. I suggest that you watch his debate. This was his afterthoughts when he debated Peter Singer. So after Dinesh D'Souza debated the atheist Peter Singer about intrinsic morality being an argument for God's existence, he was stunned by Singer's admission. I write this fresh from debating the bioethicist Peter Singer on Can We Be Moral Without God? At Singer's home campus, Princeton University. Singer is a mild-mannered fellow who speaks calmly and lucidly, yet you wouldn't have to read his work too long to find his extreme positions. He cheerfully advocates for infanticide and euthanasia, and in almost the same breath favors animal rights. Even most liberals would have qualms about third trimester abortions. Singer does not hesitate to advocate what may be termed fourth trimester abortions, the killing of an infant after they are born. Because Singer writes, my colleague Helga Kusch and I suggest that a period of 28 days after birth might be allowed before an infant is accepted as having the same rights to life as others. Singer argued that even pigs, chickens, and fish have more signs of consciousness and higher rationality, and consequently a greater claim to rights. So the rights are not based on being made in the image of God. The rights, because these people have rejected the idea that we are made in the image of God and each person is infinitely of value, they are able to use their rationality to conclude that it's all based on your level of conscious development. If somebody is unaware that they of their own existence and can't contemplate higher intellectual thoughts and stuff like that, then you can dispense of them. And consequently, a greater claim to rights than do fetuses, newborn infants, and people with mental disabilities. Rats are indisputably more aware of their surroundings and more able to respond to purposeful and complex ways to things they like and dislike than a fetus at 10 or even 32 weeks gestation. The calf, the pig, and the much derided chicken come out well ahead of the fetus at any stage of pregnancy. In Singer, we may be witnessing someone both horrifying and yet somehow refreshing, an intellectually honest atheist, because they are rejecting that man is made in the image of God. And once you reject that, communism, fascism, then after you remove the divinity of the individual, it means that they are in this case even less than animals. What's interesting, there is they worship created instead of the creator. There's a Bible verse about that. Romans 1. Or Paul kind of puts it this way: they exchanged the truth about God for a lie, and they worshipped and served created things rather than the Creator, who is forever praised. I find this here is what I'm noticing in society now that we've left the evil sky daddy of Christianity. Furthermore, just as they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, so God gave them over to a deprived mind. So so that they would do what ought not to be done. They have become filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, greed, depravity. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, and malice. They are gossips, slanderers, God haters, insolent, arrogant, boastful. They invent ways of doing evil. They disobey their parents. They have no understanding, no fidelity, no love, no mercy. Although they know God's righteous decree that those who do such things deserve death, they not only continue to do these things, but also approve of those who practice them. That's what I see in society. I was just at a gas station, and the lady was saying that, her son was driving a scooter, got plowed into just over here in our area, got hit and run, and people just left him. He could have been dead in the ditch. And stuff like that. And I'm seeing the protests, the violence. I'm seeing the degeneracy on social media, on TikTok videos. And that right there, again, is a perfect explanation of what, in my opinion, we're seeing in society. Because if we leave the Creator, then we will worship ourselves as God. And that leads to depravity. I'm just looking at some of the people talking. Brad O says, very reasonable question, very reasonable, great question. Just so many liars, hard to know where to go at this point. Thanks, Ed, for showing up. Yes, I saw that. Stonehenge, it was like that orange kind of like spray, you know, they're defacing, they're throwing soup on Van Gogh and stuff like that. The thing is that um, that's what I find the problem is that um, these people think that they are morally right, that they're doing good. And it says, woe to the end times, you know, woe to the generation that calls good evil and evil good, that calls bitter sweet and sweet bitter. Now, I see this now happening, and it's very sad. It's very upsetting. Just going through. Yeah, Jay Bon wants to come on. Like I said, I don't mind, but we're already at an hour and a half. Just finished work. LA, I'm sure, has also a lot of things to say as well. I'm not an academic either. I'm even less research than Jason. I'm just curious about what I see and observe and take in researching, etc. I retain nothing in my old age, though. Is design just self-adjusting to avoid death naturally? Good morning, Jason. That's Tencent saying hello. Bruce will be starting a stream. Hey, Luke, what up, buddy? Yeah, sorry if I'm not inviting people on. I just wanted to get through like the actual content and make the arguments, let you guys kind of think of that. Just going through. Thanks, Darla Lama, for $2 super chat. Thanks, Jason John, for all you do. Well, thank you guys, because if you guys were not here, I would just be talking to myself. The organism does what makes the organism successful 100%, even us humans. Thanks a lot, Luke, for, is that a pound or for $1? I don't see J-Bon commenting anymore. Maybe he left. Tencent says evolution doesn't work for me. If it was true, why don't monkeys evolve and other animals to this day? Welcome to the stream, Prophet Muhammad. Stream down. What up, Rod R in the house? All right. Let me go back to the presentation. Entire screen. Share. Okay, that actually is done. So the PowerPoint presentation is done. A few things before we go to anything else. I'm just going to go through this video here with Behe talking about irreducible complexity, which I think is another valid argument. So I'm going to present the screen. Okay, we've gone through that. This one here.
Going to spin half as fast as it used to.
The bacterial flagellum was one of the central examples of irreducible complexity Behe highlighted in his book.
If you take away the propeller, if you take away the motor, if you take away the clamps that hold it onto the cell's membrane, take away any of a number of different parts, it's not that the flagellum is going to spin half as fast as it used to, or a quarter. It's broken. It doesn't work at all. It's like taking the propeller off of an outboard motor on your boat and wondering how far now you can go in the water. You can't go anywhere. So that's a problem for Darwin's theory, because Darwin's theory says that things evolve by working a little bit, maybe not very well, but a little bit, and then a mutation, a change comes along that helps it work a little bit better, and that helps the organism survive and have more offspring. And so then another change comes along, and another, and it gradually builds up to the final structure. Well, that might work for some things, but it doesn't work for systems that are irreducibly complex, things like the bacterial flagellum. Because, well, if you wanted to build an outboard motor for a boat, what would you start with? Would you start with, say, just an iron rod that,
I'm just going to stop it here. So basically, just give me a second. I got to text something. I will probably spend a little bit of time after at 8 o'clock jumping onto Bruce's stream, having a chat, catching up with my brother, maybe till 8:30, the first 30 minutes. And then after, I'm going to go spend time with Michelle. So anyways, this is basically what I see as well, right? It's that, looking at the whole respiratory apparatus, let's say from the stoma, photosynthesis, requiring, the sun to be present, requiring the elements and the molecules, magnesium as a center, then you compare the similarities as well as the differences. So you have this you have these cows, right? Now the cows are able to eat the grass and take cellulose and use that and get the protein out of there. Then after, the bacteria that have to be present in the chambers to produce the fatty acids. So the cows are actually not vegan. They are actually eating the grass, which is feeding microorganisms within their various chambers, which then produce the nutrients, the fat-soluble vitamins, and as well the fatty acids. So the cow are on a high fat, they're like keto. The cow is not actually eating just grass. The grass is being fed to microorganisms. So the cow needs to, it can, again, irreducible complexity. The cow at one point, how did it function when it was not able to take grass into its chambers? What about those bacteria? How was the cow able to nourish itself prior to the bacteria? Those bacteria produce the fat. Then after, you end up having the manure come out the other end, the urine come out the other end. That feeds a vast microcosm, a universe within the soil matrix of living fungi, bacteria, and stuff like that. So the soil itself is alive and breathing, and the cow is essential. And then after it excretes methane, the methane goes up into the atmosphere, produces CO2 and water. The CO2 is essential to balance the greenhouse gas for temperatures and stuff like that. Not enough, too much. And then after you have us who can eat those animals, and those animals have all the nutrients that are required for us. We're breathing in oxygen, we're excreting CO2, the plants are breathing in. We have hemoglobin with iron centers. Plants use a form of transport with magnesium that has an outer structure that is almost exactly like hemoglobin, and it just goes on and on and on and on. I see the whole universe as fine-tuned, and I see all of the various ecological and biological systems as symbiotic and complexly interdependent of one another. Therefore, I feel like things were created by a creator relatively quickly and in a way all at once. Now that is for sure 100% an assumption on my part, but is it a reasonable assumption, or is it ludicrous? I think that at the very least you might not agree, but to be called, which I am often called, and Christians, or people who believe in creation or intelligent design are laughed at. But in reality, those that are laughing, often when their point of view are challenged, they have a lot less reasons to believe theirs, but they have the upper hand, right? Because they have academic institutions. So they don't have to necessarily have it here. They can just rely on the academic institutions and laugh at those that are actually asking very, very reasonable questions. I am highly skeptical of the academic institutions, especially now. When I started researching nutritional science, when I started the ketogenic diet, I started seeing that there was corruption within nutritional science, that there was biases within nutritional science, that corporations and science were cherry picking studies so that they could basically manipulate the masses to eat what they wanted us to eat, and to say what was actually bad for us is good, and now what is actually good for us is bad. And for me, then, though I didn't go and train in university, okay, and I'm not an academic able to completely dismantle or even completely explain evolution and stuff like that. I'm a big dummy, but there's good reason to be highly skeptical and to say, well, I'm seeing, like, if they could lie to us about something as simple as nutrition and nutritional science and how it's been hijacked by corporations and Coca-Cola and stuff like that, why would I be why would it be unreasonable to be a skeptic of institutions that they don't have their agendas as well? If you want a career in academia and you go against the narrative, do you think that you'll be hired by any after graduating? Do you think that if you're going against the mainstream narrative, that you won't be censored or canceled? Again, I'm just looking at how the world currently functions and how people get shadow banned, how people, the pandemic, the COOF, the jab. Look at all of the highly trained people with credentials that were not given platforms, that were fired, that were canceled. And now in retrospect, when it's too late, now the truth is coming out. And I'm just supposed to sit here with reasonable questions, but somebody that took a course or is in university that drank the Kool-Aid of what their professor drank, I think there's a reason, it's very reasonable for me to be highly skeptical. Okay, we're going to stop this one. Again, Darwin didn't know that this, what I'm about to show you, was happening in the most very basic cell. So let's check it out. Turn off the volume. So the cell is far from a blob, okay, with a dark nucleus in the center. It is machinery. It is organic biological technology. In fact, a lot of the stuff that we see going on in this simple cell, we have recreated in our own industries, and they are actually dumbed down, much less complex systems. There is a mind. There is these cells react to their outside environment. They make decisions. I'm highly educated in fasting. Go look up autophagy. When you actually stop eating and just let the body do what it's got to do. I mean, check out these Nikes. Check out these Reeboks on this guy. Okay, so again, this is just a common designer, that's using, legs and feet inside the cell. And we can see that he finds it quite useful, so he uses it for humans, and for animals have legs and feet. So we see this microcosm, this city in every little cell, billions and billions of them. And they're being replicated, and they're being made new. And when you fast and stop eating, many times your body is given the chance to correct itself. So your body has a self-awareness and knows how to fix itself even better than we do. We already saw with the bacteria flagellum that we have, gears, we have we have shafts, we have propellers. I think this was something relevant to show you guys. And anything else? All right. I'm just bringing down the tabs that I've seen. All right. Perfect. So going back, let's say in a future video, to going back to another video that I'd like to do, we could look at the complex life of plants and see how they communicate, how they have a form of consciousness and intelligence and awareness. I've researched even a form of slime that has a form of consciousness as well. Now, when we look at reasonable reasons to believe another one, we can go, is it reasonable to believe in Christianity? Is it reasonable to believe in the Gospels? And when we go and look at, is it reasonable to believe in the Gospels, are we going to be using methods that we use in chemistry or physiology Of course not. We're going to apply the standards that historicists and historians use. So the science of historicity, the methods that historians use to come to historical truths. Prove to me that Alexander the Great lived. Prove to me, without a shadow of a doubt, 100%. Prove to me. So it's the same thing, okay? Yet we don't deny that Genghis Khan lived, that Alexander the Great lived, that all of these Roman emperors and stuff like that, Caesar, Tiberius, all of these things. But what is left of them but storybooks, but written documents? The thing is out of every, and I'm not exaggerating, this is a claim that is true. Out of all of the figures in history, there is nobody that has more evidence, okay, historical evidence, than Jesus Christ. If we go here, and again, because it's impossible to prove historical claims using chemical methods, yet it's not considered invalid. We can look over here and just go through all of the people in history. So we look here and we go, we have ancient narratives of Alexander's life, right? That's written between 30 BC and the 3rd century. These are hundreds of years after his death, okay? Jesus Christ, if you don't listen to me, don't listen to somebody who just, is going to say that there's no proof in it about the Gospels. No, actually, the atheistic New Testament scholars, okay, so we'll take people like Bart Ehrman and stuff like that, do acknowledge that the Gospels were written in the 1st century. So if Jesus died anywhere from 30 to 33 AD, we have Gospels written very early, some estimated around 50 BC. And Bart Ehrman tries to stretch Revelation to 120. Now, we also have these Gnostic Nag Hammadi Gospels, but we know that the dating for those are not in the 1st century. They're mid-2nd century, 3rd and 4th century. So they're, again, very far. If we look at, let's say, somebody, how long after Buddha? That's not, what the heck? It's going to correct me. How long after Buddha died do we get his writings? Buddha himself wrote nothing, and no works concerning the events of his life appear until many years following his death. We're talking about hundreds of years soon after his death. And we can go on and on and on, and we can look at many, and that's for another time, many historical figures. And we can look at that, and we'll see that for somebody in history, a claim that Jesus Christ is historical, he is, the writings about him are extremely close to the events. And that means if you study historicity and what historians consider the historical method of reliability and authenticity and things like this, you'll see that the Gospel and the New Testaments really hold their ground. And people that study New Testament, people that are biblical scholars and stuff like that, are not all believers. And so what you want to do is you want to look at these New Testament scholars, and you want to take the harshest criticisms. You want to look at what the atheists are saying, and people that come and say that things like Jesus is just a myth, Jesus is a myth that they stole from previous religions, that would be laughed out of academia. There is no academic, okay, that would ever, okay, that has a job, okay, that is credited and respected by their peers in their profession. There's none of them that would deny that there is an actual historical Jesus that was crucified. No one denies that. All right. Then they'll go even one step further, and they, of course, these secular academics or New Testament scholars will not say that he was resurrected, but what they will say is that they believe that the writings are based on people who 100% were convinced that that he was risen, that he was resurrected, that they believed it. So, of course, they're not saying that the resurrection is true, but they are looking at a historical figure. They're looking at biographies, historical, biographies. That's what the Gospels are. And what they're saying is, yes, Jesus was a historical fact. Yes, he was crucified. And yes, his followers believe that he did rise from the dead. I think we're going to leave it at that. I'm going to go over to Bruce's channel and maybe talk with him for 30 to 45 minutes. And I encourage you guys, go see all of these historical figures and just one by one say, okay, how long after they lived or how long after they died were there writings about them? They're all hundreds of years, most often after. Jesus has the best historical evidence of him being an actual historical figure. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. See ya.